get started, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me? I look blue, but I'm here. So welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees on December 8th, 2020. The time is 6:01. I will invite Jinder to call the roll.
All right. Trustee Duke Hughes. Trustee Lentini.
Here.
Trustee Ross.
Here.
Acting Chair Cortez.
Here. It looks like Adriana's here now.
Trustee Duke Hughes.
Here.
Thank you. I'll invite Jinder to explain how the public can participate in this evening's agenda.
All right, good evening, everyone. Viewers are welcome to provide public comment online through Zoom or by telephone at 669-900-9128. And the meeting ID is 916-157-93243#. If you are watching the meeting on Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please select the raise hand feature either on the bottom of your screen or through the participants icon. If you are participating by telephone and wish to provide public comments, please press *9. When the chair opens the public comment period, when it is your turn to speak, you will be notified that the host is inviting you to participate. You will need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Once you're unmuted, you will have 3 minutes to provide your comments.
Thank you, Jinder. So I just moved agenda amendments, correct? Are there any amendments to this evening's agenda?
There are none.
I don't see anything. So we'll move to the minutes. Sorry, I'm reading my script here. Are there any questions or answers? Are there any questions about the minutes from the trustees to staff?
Nope.
I will open to public comment.
There are currently no attendees.
Okay. So I will close public comment. And there are no comments in regards to the minutes. Do I call each person Jinder, or just because there were no comments, it says?
So if there aren't any changes to the minutes, I can call the roll. If there are, we can ask other trustees.
Okay, so if there's no comments, we'll request a motion, correct? Motion? Would anyone like the motion to approve the minutes?
A motion.
A second?
I'll second.
Great, Jinder, can you call roll, please?
Yes. Trustee Duke Hughes.
Aye.
Trustee Lentini.
Aye.
Trustee Ross.
Aye.
Acting Chair Cortez.
Aye. Thank you, Jinder. And now we're on the section of meeting open to the public. We are at number 2, introduction and swearing in of new board member Eric Hahn by Lindsay Lara, City Clerk.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And Eric, if I can go ahead and have you. Yep, perfect. Unmute. Congratulations once again for your recent appointment to the Board of Library Trustees. We're thankful to have you here. As soon as I'm done swearing you in, I will therefore forever refer to you as Member Hahn. But for now, you are still Eric Hahn to me. So go ahead and repeat after me and raise your hand, your right hand. Thank you. I state your name.
I, Eric Hahn,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Do I have to?
Yes, if you would, please go ahead and let me visually sign to see you signing. Well, you can sign it down and show me you signed it. That would be.
All right. I'll just do it. All right, there we go.
That's awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Member Hahn. Congratulations.
Thanks. Looking forward to it, everyone.
Well, welcome, Eric. We're glad to have you. Henry, are we allowed to take a little time to have Eric introduce himself and us?
Yes, I thought we could do around the room, and it's nice that Jill Tokutomi's here, as she knows of Eric's work at the Pickleweed Library. So yes, why don't we do?
Perfect. Eric, do you want us to go first, or would you? Maybe we'll go first here, so not to put you on the spot. So, hi, Eric. Nice to meet you. Jamie Cortez. Gosh, how long have I been on the board? I don't know. I think I'm coming up on 4 sometime early next year. And I originally joined the board because I had moved here and did not know anyone when I moved, but I hung out at the library with my little one, and it became a great place to build community, which is why I wanted to support the library. Let's see, and I'll just say, maybe if everyone wants to say what their favorite book right now is, well, I'm reading a lot of the Who Was books, the kids versions of Who Was historical figures. So it's actually, I'm getting to relearn some history of historical figures from a 2nd grade version. So thanks, Eric. On my screen, I have Rob. So if you wanted to go next.
Sure. Rob Ross joined, I don't know, 3 years ago, I think it's been. You know, my interest, I mean, my whole life, I've obviously been a library patron, but my mom actually worked for the American Library Association. In fact, she was in charge of all the conferences for many years that Henry probably attended, all over the United States, and all the exhibits and stuff like that, all the exhibition halls and all those big things. So I'm from Chicago originally, which is where ALA is based and stuff like that. And I just thought, what a great opportunity to give back to the community and join, you know, the San Rafael, you know, library board. I'm reading, you want to ask me what I was reading? I'm reading the Fall of the Roman Empire, as a matter of fact, is what I'm reading right now. So it's a very dense book, long, and I'm struggling to get through it, but I will prevail, just unlike the Roman Empire. So anyway.
Thanks, Rob.
Pass it on to Cheryl.
Hi, Eric. Welcome. It's nice to meet you. I'm a really new member of this board. I think this is my 3rd board meeting. I just joined this year. I have, however, been a member of the Library Foundation Board for the last few years or so. So that's kind of introduced me to being connected to the library. I've been a voracious reader my entire life and still am, and love libraries. And I love being part of the foundation board, but it's a very specific focus. So when this opportunity became available, I really just wanted to be more engaged with the library as a whole, and continue to find ways to support it. I am just finishing reading a book called Clean, The New Science of Skin, which has been, incredibly fascinating, especially if you don't like showering. You might just be doing the right thing. So I can recommend it. It's interesting and fun. but it's nice to have you join the board. Welcome.
Great, thank you.
So how about Adriana?
Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, Eric. Welcome. Really nice to meet you. I also joined earlier this year, a little bit before Cheryl, I believe, and I'm a big fan of our local library. I also have two young children who have benefited greatly from our trips to the library. It's one of my favorite times with the kids. And when the pandemic hit, the various digital options and curbside options really were a lifesaver for both us and the children. I'll tell you what book I'm reading, but I'm passionate about libraries in general. I have several university degrees, and in each university that I've been at, in England, in Mexico, there's always been a library project to build a new library. For some reason, it's just, you know, I have the luck of the draw. So when I saw this opening and that we are also looking at renovating and modernizing our library and potentially a new site, I just thought it would be a fantastic opportunity. And I am reading, actually trying to get through two books. One is The Body by Bill Bryson, which is similar to Cheryl, more you know, science type book. It's pretty big. And the other one is The Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. Both recommendations by our wonderful team who always send me great books to read, but now I'm reading them both at once, and it's taken a while. But welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to meet you. So I guess, do I go?
Susan and Henry, do you have, I mean, I assume Henry's already met you, but Susan, I don't know, is he?
I can go next. I'm Henry Bankhead, Assistant Library and Recreation Director. I've worked for the city of San Rafael for 5 years. My mother was also a librarian. And my favorite book is this Kindle that I got from her. She's passed on. But the book that I'm reading lately on this Kindle is called The Record of a Space. Wait, what is it? It's part of a science fiction trilogy with aliens and stuff, and basically whatever book's in front of me, but I'm really into science fiction. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks.
Susan?
I wasn't sure if we were going to have Jill go next. Hi, I'm Susan Andrade Wax. I'm the Director of Library and Recreation. I apologize in advance. I'm in my studio apartment up by Dominican, so I cut out easily. So I'm going to make it as quickly as possible. I started with the city 2.5 years ago, right before the two departments were integrated. I have been in the field of Parks and Recreation for over 40 years. And let's see, what else can I tell you? My brother and I actually volunteered and worked at the Arcadia Public Library growing up. So that was our first introduction. And I was always the kid who did the summer reading program and everything else that they had to offer. So that was my first volunteer job before I started getting into Parks and Rec.
Thanks.
That's it.
Susan, are you reading anything besides city memos?
Actually, I'm reading the municipal code right now. We're reviewing several of the chapters and revising them. So unfortunately, that's my most interesting read. Right before that, I tend to read factual things like tax books and weird stuff like that. So reference materials. So the last thing I read was How Not to Die.
Oh.
I know it sounds grim, but it's actually basically, you know, eating healthy, kind of adopting a vegetarian or a vegan diet as a way of preventing different types of illnesses and things like that.
Good to know. Jill, nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Jamie, and welcome Eric and Daryl and Adriana. My name's Jill Tokotomi. I supervise the Pickleweed Library as well as the Northgate Library. I've been with the city for about 5 years, and I've been in my current position for a little under a year. And I am reading a lot of teen fantasy right now. So I'm reading the Rainbow Rowell Simon Snow series. I just finished the second book, and I am also reading A Torch Against the Night by Saba Tahir. So those are nice escapism for me.
Thanks, Jill. Jinder, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, Eric. My name is Jinder. I've been with the city for about 15 years, and I'm the administrative analyst. Ironically, I'm not actually a big reader, so I'm not reading anything right now.
Great. And Eric, we'll end with you. Thank you.
All right. So thanks everyone for sharing. I guess a little bit about myself. I came to San Rafael by way of, I grew up in the Detroit area. I lived down in Texas. I was down in DC. So I've done north, south, east, west. Loved it out here the most. We've been here almost 8 years, but fairly new to San Rafael, a little over a year. But when we got here, I spent probably over half my career in some form of public service, and I really wanted to get involved locally. So I actually called in and was paired up to try to do some reading buddies work with the Pickleweed Library with Jill. So and she was actually kind of brought it to my attention, to a bunch of us, that there was a potential spot, and I was thrilled to be able to put in for it. The library's always been a huge part of my life since I was a kid. Spent so much time, countless afternoons and evenings there. Actually, really, for some reason, I was attracted to the Dewey Decimal System so much, and learning categorization and organization. I for some reason, I just loved it. But to today, you're not going to relate with a lot of you. I have a young son, and we immediately started exploring the library systems wherever we go. And when the pandemic hit, the curbside, we've, same with you, Adriana, we've been using the curbside pickup books because he can run through books really fast, and we get tired of reading the same ones over and over, but he loves it. It's a whole new adventure. So really excited. And as far as what I'm reading, I just finished There. It's a novel by Tommy Orange, kind of a Bay Area native, Native American descent, kind of exploring a little bit of the culture there. And I've actually started reading, and I've actually started reading the tome that is former President Obama's A Promised Land. So that's what I'm reading right now.
Great, Eric. Well, thank you again. We're happy to have you here. All right, let's go to the presentation on mall library improvements by supervising librarian Jill Tokotomi. Take it away, Jill.
All right, let me just share my screen. Sorry, guys. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okie dokie. So I'm going to move this so it's not in the way. All right, so I'm going to talk about the new pop-in library at the Northgate Mall, which is a play on pop-up library. But first, I have some late-breaking news. Is this in presenter mode for you guys?
No, it looks like non-presenter.
Hold on, I'm sorry. What I want to do. Sorry, I took the wind out of the late breaking news. I'm all ready for COVID service and for in-person browsing, but based on, the new shelter in place order and an abundance of caution, the leadership, both from the Marin County Free Libraries and San Rafael, have decided that we're going to pause browsing, but hopefully the work that we've done to prepare it for browsing will still be relevant in whatever time period it takes for us to reopen again. So that is the late breaking news. So a little summary. So in 2018, the City of San Rafael Library Department partnered with Library and Rec partnered with Marin County Free Libraries to launch a pop-up mall at a pop-up library at the Northgate Mall, which provided a site in North San Rafael, and it's been a collaboration since then. We've been rolling out a regional approach to relaunching COVID safe services, which I'll speak to a bit. And Northgate was identified as the best location for in-person browsing. And MCFL agreed to staff once we were open for browsing. And we agreed to kind of prepare the space and orient folks and get some training in place. And we opened as a pop-in library on November 12th. So a little background, like I said, it was launched in 2018 in what was formerly the Payless Shoes, in partnership with mall ownership, Merlone Gear, and Marin County Free Libraries. So there it is, kind of near the opening day. We had a little Snoopy out front. This was Mall Library 1.0. And the mall has been really great. The spirit of it has been very collaborative, very experimental. We've used it as a place to deploy numerous emerging technologies. We have a 3D printer. You can see a dad and his child playing in this kind of weird sand pit that was like topographic sand pit. And then which we had to get rid of because it was a mess, but it was fun while it lasted. And then we have a child playing with VR. So that was sort of the spirit of the mall. We also had the collection was set up as a browsing collection. So it was a bit more like going into a bookstore than a library, as in, it wasn't so Dewey Decimally at all, or even alphabetical. It was just kind of a place for people to go and browse. And we did get a lot of folks who were not library users. They were going into the mall as like a place of commerce, and then they saw, oh, you have a video store here, like a Blockbuster, and then we were able to issue a lot of cards and bring in a whole new sort of batch of library users. And we also were piloting fine forgiveness. So we were not charging any fines for late materials at the Northgate Mall. When the Pickleweed and Downtown Library launched for curbside service back in June, we initially didn't include Northgate in that. We'd been closed for COVID reasons since March. And we just started with our other two branches, and Northgate remained closed for a number of reasons. Right now we're at a staffing shortage. We have 6 vacant positions. And like I said, the books are in a browsing order, which makes it especially challenging for staff to pull materials. If people aren't coming in to browse, then we're trying to get them things and we don't know where anything is. And then also the mall had their own protocol for curbside that was not in line with what we were doing at all, which would have made it more challenging. And as we've been rolling out slowly and cautiously rolling out services again, we've taken on a regional approach to those. Curbside service has been offered since June at Downtown and Pickleweed, but Downtown has been kind of the place where we've had the most success with it. It's been super popular since the onset. Staff are answering approximately 240 calls a day, whether it's people wanting books or reference or whatever, but it's very busy. And the downtown location is leading the county in terms of circulation and returns check-ins, and we're right behind Mill Valley in terms of fulfilling holds. So very busy downtown. And then Pickleweed, we decided to be the location that we pilot the express computing. We have a separate lab at Pickleweed, so folks who don't even have to enter the library, they can just enter the back of the Borough Center building and enter the lab. And we've set it up so, you know, only 4 people at a time. And the other benefit to offering it at Pickleweed is that based on some data that was gathered just a few months ago, you can see there's a huge digital equity divide in the canal versus other parts of San Rafael. So, or Marin. But yeah, you can see that it's very much needed at Pickleweed. And Northgate was determined to be the best place to roll out library in-person browsing. There's a number of reasons that it's a great location. Because this was a Payless before, we have the same shelving in place, which is like, if you can imagine a shoe store with the different shoes lined up, that we've just put books there. So all of the books are front facing. It's really beautiful. And it allows for touchless browsing. So people aren't having to pull books off the shelf. They can see the covers and interact with the collection in that way. It is one floor, unlike downtown. The aisles are really wide and it allows for really clear one-way traffic. The space is open, but it's relatively small. So it's open enough to accommodate social distancing, but it's small enough that 2 people working the floor can easily monitor and enforce our guidelines. And it's the only location of ours that's in partnership with Marin County Free Libraries, which is great because since we are at a staffing shortage, we can help out and we can support, but they were able to offer staffing. So what we could offer was preparing the space to be relaunched. It had been sitting for 8 months. The collection that was there was out of date. As you guys can imagine, a lot has happened in the last 8 months with COVID and also with the increased interest in Black Lives Matter materials and race and equity materials. So the collection we had there was just a bit out of date and a lot of the books were not in great condition. So we went ahead and deselected a lot of materials. The ones that were still in pretty good condition, we packed up in these gift bags to hand out to patrons just for free. And then other ones we boxed up to be digitized at the Internet Archive. So they'll still be made available to people, but just not in physical format anymore. So that was a clearing out of a lot of material. And then we had to bring in some new hot items because if we're going to be the only location in the county that's available for browsing, we didn't want to have second-rate stuff. So staff both at the county and downtown did a lot of ordering on the items that had the longest holds requests and items that were of particular interest for race and equity, since that's a topic that people have had more interest in the last several months. We also were poaching the new and most wanted items from other branches that were closed, both at county locations and our own, because those items were just sitting on the shelf and we wanted them to move. And then we also, in the catalog, we turned off holds on the items that are living at Northgate, which means when patrons place requests for materials, they'll get pulled from all different locations throughout our consortium, but not Northgate. So the items that are the most popular aren't going to get pulled from Northgate to go elsewhere. They're going to stay on the shelves. And so the result is this beautiful, clean, organized space with all sorts of nice, popular items. We did a ton of dusting. We created some new wayfinding signs and got it deep cleaned. And we did a lot of decluttering because Northgate had accumulated a lot of junk because a lot of different folks were working from the county and from downtown. So now it's a nice restart. So the other component beyond the collection and the space was safety. So we we had to get it set up to be a safe space. So when folks walk into the branch, their expectations are clearly communicated. Staff, there's a little greeter that sits behind that sneeze guard, and they do a little screening of people, make sure they have their mask on, and make sure that they don't have symptoms themselves or haven't been exposed to anyone who does. And we also, to manage the flow of people, we let people know that their browsing is limited to 15 minutes. So it's just a quick pop in, get what you need, get out, and 6 people at a time. And the person who's in the greeter station has 2 cups with 6 marbles. When someone comes in, they move one into the in. When someone leaves, they move it to the out. So making sure that we're keeping things not too crowded. If we have a little stanchion, so when it gets full, we can close off the door. We also created some social distancing guides on the floor. So as you can kind of see on this picture to the left, there's a clear one-way flow of traffic, and staff in the month that they were working were really good about actually enforcing that. Unlike at the grocery store, you just go wherever you want. They were actually saying, go this way, then go that way, then go this way, to keep a flow of traffic. And then we had some circles to create distancing when people are queuing up for checkout. This is Henry's vision here. So we came up with this assisted checkout. So we have the self-checkout machine which we've always had at libraries, where people can just check themselves out. A lot of people don't like to use self-check, so we created assisted checkout, where you can see Bonnie behind the desk is helping Shane check out his materials. There's a scanner. He scans his card, that pulls up his account, and she just guides him as he's scanning the materials himself. But she's kind of guiding him through the process versus a screen. But then he's not passing his card or the books back and forth, so it limits contact. And then, like I said, Henry's vision is this beautiful fishbowl that staff live behind. It closes off the desk, and it's a frame made out of PVC pipe with clear shower curtains drilled to it. So that creates a safer work environment for our staff. Okay, and we're launched. Just kidding. So that's the end of the preparation. So the mall opened the 2nd week of November. It was open for 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Marin County Free Libraries were doing the ongoing staffing. We were the first and only location in the county providing browsing, and patrons were so happy to get to go back into a library, and maybe someday they can again. And I wanted to give appreciation to my coworker, Margaret, who's the full-time librarian, or she will be the full-time librarian at Northgate. And she did a ton of labor to help me get the mall branch set up. And also appreciation to MCFL for their partnership. And any comments or questions?
Jill, thanks for the presentation. Henry, did you actually build the fishbowl yourself?
I saw that at a testing location and online, and then the Department of Public Works, shout out to Omar and Anthony built that one. Michael built the one downtown. We have 2 more downtown. But yeah, they were awesome in helping us with the vision, and they also installed a new toilet just today or yesterday. Yeah. So we're all set up for when we may be able to reopen again in the future.
Oh, interesting.
Wow, a new toilet. Great job.
I have some questions, but I will see if any of the other board members, if any other trustees have questions first.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jill and Henry. Great work on opening that location. I've been there, and it's just a great, haven in the middle of a shopping mall. And just my question is, how safe did the staff feel and the public? Like, did you get a sense for everyone feeling really safe and able to really enjoy the experience and make the most of it?
I can speak to that a little bit. So we were in contact with the folks from the county who are working there, and the sense is that the folks who worked there felt very safe in the very limited amount of people that were coming in. If they were working on the floor, they had face shields, they were behind a sneeze guard, and then if they were working at the desk, they were behind the fishbowl. And if you contrast that with other retail experiences, I think it did feel particularly safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it looks safe, but it's nice to know that everyone felt safe as well, and hopefully we'll be able to reopen again.
Other questions?
One more question. Did you get the foot traffic that you were expecting? Did you get more? Did you get less?
Yeah, I had the same question.
What I heard from the people from the county is that they were getting consistent people coming in, consistent, really pleased people that we were reopened. We had it set up to accommodate a line outside. When we initially opened before the new shelter in place, the limit was 10 people at a time. It occasionally approached that limit, but there was never a line outside. So I think, and this was really early days, we started with a soft launch where we didn't even publicize it. And then we were just beginning to publicize it, and people were kind of just starting to catch on that it was there. So I think if we had had more time, we might have gotten more traffic, but we didn't get, it wasn't like the doors weren't bursting down.
Yeah, we have a low-tech people counter there that's kind of like $30 on Amazon, but we were looking at installing a more cloud-based people counter so we could actually get the stats. But we haven't done that yet. But like Jill says, it never was really capacity, but it was, and it was also kind of a soft launch. So there were some regulars starting to come back.
So I guess pardon if this is an ignorant question of like what is for this pop-up? What is I guess you guys were open for a few weeks. What was success in your mind? And when you guys open up again, what are you thinking about? Is it in terms of kind of the visits and the numbers or the checkouts that you're looking for? Or
That's a good question.
I have an answer.
Go ahead, Henry.
So within the sort of previous paradigm of reopening, all libraries were being very cautious in our area of the state. Other areas of the state, they've been open for a while, but the success factor was to have a browsing library in Marin County, which this was the only one, and we're able to do that with the county as a way to kind of experiment with what this could look like in a sort of safe and sort of very incremental way, as opposed to opening all the libraries up. And so that was the success of it. And I think if that wasn't enough, now we're all prepared for the next time. So like with the roller coaster of COVID since March, every time we get somewhere and have to pull back, we were kind of ahead of the game, that we've kind of thought about where we're going. So in a weird kind of way, that makes us more prepared for the next step when it comes. So I feel like it was successful in that way.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what the purpose of opening the pop-in mall was, a pilot location, so we could see what worked, and then that could be iterated at all of the branches, not just for us, but in the county as well. We could share that feedback with people.
Gotcha. Thanks. That makes sense.
So, Jill, I was a little confused, and I think you had said that the county was providing the staffing, but I thought when we opened the pop-up, some of our librarians were there and Margaret's going to be there. So I'm just a little confused on when we're saying the county staffing it, but then I know that our
Yeah,
librarians are.
sorry, that is confusing. So this is just COVID. The county was providing the staffing. Initially, when the pop-up opened 2 years ago, we were doing all the staffing or
Right.
the vast majority of the staffing. And then when we sort of reorged when I was brought on to supervise the Northgate Mall, then we decided that it was determined there should be a full-time librarian there, and Margaret transferred into that position, but that was, February, and that hasn't really come to fruition. So the hope is that in normal times, again, then then Margaret will be back there, I'll be back there, and we will be staffing it. But in the interim, because of budgetary reasons and also just staffing shortages, the county stepped up to offer that up to us.
Got it. Okay, thanks for the clarification. I'll miss Margaret at the downtown.
I know.
Jinder, are there any public comments?
No, there are currently no attendees.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Jill. We appreciate it and always good to see you. Say hi to everyone for us.
It was great to see all of you, and take care. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Jinder, I was supposed to call in order. Okay, public comment. I'm opening the public comment. As Jinder said, there are no community members on. So let's move to matters before the Board of Trustees. So for number 4, selection of commission chair, vice chair, and committee assignments. Henry, you have a presentation?
For this specifically thing, no, I don't have a PowerPoint. So what we were thinking was that there would be a discussion of who wants these positions or who's excited about doing that. Susan could maybe reiterate the change in the citywide approach to who's chair and vice chair. So the idea is that it kind of rotates so everyone gets a chance.
Sure.
Susan had done.
So
Yeah.
I'm unmuted. So can everybody hear me okay? Great. So a lot of the boards and commissions that the city have vary in size from 5 to over like 14. So when the city council changed the terms and implemented the new 2 4-year term max in 2014, I believe, you can imagine that if there wasn't an annual rotation of chair and vice chair with some boards and commissions, members might not ever even have an opportunity to serve. Before that, there were examples of boards and commissions where chairs were on there for more than a decade. So in order to change all that, the city council first established a 2 4-year term for all boards and commission. The other thing that has been established in many of the boards and commissions is an annual process to select a chair and vice chair. There is nothing that prevents them getting reappointed, but just to go through the annual process of giving everybody the opportunity to be considered for chair and vice chair. The recommendations going forward this next year that have been floating up are, the recommendation always is to go with the most tenured board members or commissioners first, to give them an ample opportunity to serve as chair and vice chair, and then slowly go through all of the membership on that board and commission down to the newest members, to give them plenty of time to kind of get vested and really understand the work of the board and commission that they've been appointed to before they have to serve as vice chair and chair. There's nothing that prevents a brand new member from serving in either one, but as you can imagine, everybody is a little bit better at it if they've at least been on the board or commission for some duration of time. That's the thought behind it. So at this point, actually the Library Board of Trustees and the Park and Rec Commission have a very unusual situation. Both chairs happen to have not fulfilled their full year term this for this calendar year. So both are currently vacant. The good news is they both happen at the end of the year. So if this board decides on who its chair or vice chair is tonight, they would step into that office in January and serve for the calendar year 2021. And hopefully we will have some kind of semblance of resemblance of a regular meeting eventually in 2021 instead of all virtual. But I just wanted to give that to you. Jamie has been serving as vice chair for about a year and a half, I think, maybe a little bit longer. But
Not long.
Yeah, you and I believe Josh came in like a mid-year because the chair had, I believe Henry can help me out, but I think the former chair had resigned midway through their term. So both the chair and the vice chair, Josh and Jamie, served for a little over a year just for continuity and to carry the board for the current year. So without too much more discussion, unless there's some questions, really what we're looking for is for you to have a discussion and to find out which of you, whom of you are interested in serving as either the vice chair or chair. It's a one-year term, and it would begin in January and conclude next December. Jamie Cortez is currently the vice chair, even though she is serving as acting chair tonight, and she is eligible to serve as chair if she's interested, as well as anyone else. But I always recommend that you appoint the chair first and then the vice chair. Please
Susan,
let me know if you have questions.
yeah, can you clarify, and maybe we don't need to know, but for new members, slightly new members, what the roles are of the chair and the vice chair? And then it says committee assignments on this, and I don't know if that was in particular to anything.
Yeah, we'll go into the committee assignments in a little bit after we appoint the chair and the vice chair. Currently, right now, we have a working group, as you know, for the library and conceptual design. And I think that's the only committee work that we have, and we just appointed that. So Jamie and Cheryl are both representing the Library Board of Trustees on that working group. So I think we're fine with that. But if somebody got appointed chair and vice chair, and those individuals that are currently assigned to the working group maybe get assigned to something, it would be up to them if they felt that they could do both roles. So the only other thing I think I would add is Jamie and Rob, I believe, are both serving their first term of 4 years, which ends in 2021 in April. And they are eligible to be reappointed a second 4-year term. So they have the most seniority on this current board.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions
Thank you.
or comments from,
You know, I think,
I've frozen.
no, you're not. I think
I
I
think I'm
brought up-
frozen, shoot.
I think I brought up at the last meeting when we were talking about serving on the joint board that I travel a lot. Now, obviously right now I'm not traveling very much at all, but I do travel a lot. And so I'd have a hard time committing to be the chair, vice chair myself, just because I think it's a responsibility that I take pretty seriously if that's my role. And so I'm not convinced that I'd be the best fit for it, although I obviously enjoy serving on the library board and stuff like that, but more as a participant than a chair or vice chair, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
In that spirit, since this is my first meeting, I would also think that it's definitely not a good idea for me to serve in any of those roles. So.
The other question that was posed, and I want to share this with you. I'm sure a lot of you have had many time volunteering for a variety of boards, whether it's nonprofit agencies, faith-based organizations, service leagues. But basically what a chair and vice chair does is they run the meeting. That is their role. They are also the liaison to staff. So staff will often contact the chair and vice chair to get input as far as if we're going to have a quorum, if we have enough agenda items to hold a meeting. Every once in a while, something happens where the items are not moving forward and we don't have anything substantial to meet. They also are who we discuss the different items with ahead of time to kind of brief and go over it so they're prepared for the meeting. So that's kind of their role. They also will lead discussions with the rest of you to help set agenda during the meeting. They don't do that outside of this forum, but they help to lead that discussion.
So is the process that we all nominate someone, or how what do we do now? Because it seems to me that if Jamie is willing, she's the most qualified candidate to take on the chair role going forward for the next year. So what would we do now?
So the process, I would ask each one of you, if you're interested, to let each other know that you're interested in what you're interested in serving. The chair is always leading the meeting. If the chair is not available, as we have tonight, then the vice chair is asked to step in and to chair the meeting, to lead the meeting. If both of them were not able to, let's say there's an illness or someone's traveling or both happens at the same time, we would actually go to the past chair. If there was a past chair that was still on the board, we would ask them to run the meeting. So that's usually how it works. So it's a significant role, and you are the key representative for the board, but it is, I would say it's manageable. And Jamie probably could speak to that if you were curious as to, kind of her roles and responsibilities as vice chair. But at this point, I would ask each other or say that you're interested in one or the other. This is not the time to be shy, or you might get volunteered.
Adriana, did you want to go, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead.
Oh. I mean, being the senior member, I understand that probably would make sense. I missed the first part of what Rob had said because, of course, as you all know, my internet cut out. But Adriana did tell me that Rob said he travels a lot. So if there is anyone else who wants to be chair, I'm happy for them to be it. My concern about being chair, I guess, is it's easier to be vice chair just because when you have a kid and sometimes you can't get there exactly at 6 o'clock. So I'd be concerned about, just my ability to be, chair in that role. But so that's my only concern is just being realistic for myself.
Cheryl, how do you feel about the chair and vice chair?
I feel new to the board and not really, quite, entrenched in understanding how the flow works. I mean, one of the things we did when I was on design review board is, and I think it might have been just in order of seniority, we just made like a rotation, and we said, starting with the most senior member this year, you're chair, the next most senior member is vice chair. And then we just put the order of everyone else, and we just went through every year, like, okay, it's the next year. So vice chair becomes chair, chair goes to the bottom of the line, and just checked in and confirmed that everyone agreed that the next, rotation was what would go into effect. So I really liked that system because like everyone knew what to expect, and you didn't have to worry about, oh, is it going to be my year? Like you knew when your year was going to be. And so if we thought that made sense, it gives everybody a chance. Everybody knows what's coming. Everybody knows when it's your turn. I'd be up for that. But yeah, I mean, and I just feel pretty new, and I know I would go to the bottom of that line if we did it that way. So
Eric would actually, but that's okay.
well, yes, you go to the very next. Yeah,
not quite. Yeah.
Well, Cheryl just pointed out exactly what the recommendation is going forward, kind of the best practices of the city's boards and commissions have been exactly what she just outlined. The design review board is an excellent example of that. Planning commission, pretty much, there seems to be an understanding that as you go through the seniority and you look at the list of the members on each of those advisory boards, they just kind of slowly shift into that position and then rotate. And every once in a while, just like the library board has 5 members, every once in a while in 8 years, somebody might come back through again. But in some of these boards and commissions where you have 7 or more members, if you really don't rotate, people really are not given the opportunity. So,
Susan, are we getting an alternate as well? Is that in play or no?
no, you are not. We found out, this is a year of first, right, for many things. We found out that the alternate position on many of the boards and commissions was not part of the charter or the municipal code. So it was never a requirement. It was something that they did just to make sure that people always could meet quorum, kind of to pad it in such a way that if all of a sudden you had a few people that didn't show up, that alternate could step up. They realized it was actually causing more problems than it was worth. Alternates often felt if there wasn't a vacancy during the meeting, they can't vote. So it was like they had to attend, they could participate in the dialogue, but they couldn't vote. And for a lot of them, it was actually pretty disheartening. So wherever an alternate was not required, it has been removed as soon as it became vacant. So this year, both the vacant position on the library board and the Park and Rec Commission became vacant. So when the appointments happened for regular members, they did not appoint an alternate.
It's good to know. Well, you know, as I said, the only reason I asked that question is because, like I said, there will be times, again, probably not the first part of the year, where I'll just not be able to make it for a couple, potentially a couple meetings. Since we only meet monthly, that could mean I could be gone for 2 or 3 months of meetings. That's the only concern.
Rob, are you concerned that you wouldn't be able to run the meeting those months that you're away, as well as the offline kind of liaison?
Well, I think it's more the offline because Jamie would be the more likely chair because she's the senior person. So I don't think would be as much of an issue. But in terms of being a reliable backup, I'm not sure how reliable I'd be. Plus, the liaison piece would be unreliable as well. And obviously there was a period where, people didn't know, I was out because I had a back issue, right, Henry? So that was coupled with I don't know. I'm fine if we want to go with that model that Susan's proposing and Cheryl says works, but I just want to recognize the fact that we may have sometimes, if Jamie's not around and I'm traveling, I guess we may not have quorum at that point anyway, will we? Is quorum 3?
That's what I was gonna say anyway. If 2 are out, right, we don't have quorum.
You have quorum. You have to have a majority. There's 5 members. All you need is to meet. I would say as long as we have a chair or vice chair at the meeting, we're set. As long as there's one of them, I think we're fine. It is a role that staff definitely goes into it with the idea that we're supporting you and you shouldn't be hanging out there on your own, kind of figuring it out. The best thing about the virtual meetings has been a script has been designed really for ease. And I'll tell you what, when you step in that position, you think you know it, and then you realize how helpful those tools are. They are for me too. So I would encourage everyone to consider it. One thing to consider, and I would have to check it out, but going forward, I'm just wondering, when we are able to meet in person, if we have people that are traveling but are able to participate virtually, even though the rest of the meeting is happening physically, will that be allowed? And I have a feeling it's going to be. I did work for one agency where we had a council member who lived abroad for 3 months a year, and they posted, I love this. They posted the city council agenda on the outside of the house that they were renting. And they had to do it 72 hours before the meeting, and they called in. That was before we had all these virtual platforms, and it was allowed. So I'm pretty sure flexibility is going to be our middle name going forward.
Okay. I mean,
That's great.
So where are we standing? So I guess so I'm the most senior member is what I'm, I guess, looking, what I recall. So if I take chair and Rob takes vice chair, and then we just do the rotation, I just want to make sure. So Rob and I are saying, and Rob, tell me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that, do you still feel you can fulfill like the outside stuff, or do you want to not take the vice chair role? Or are you saying we'll try and see how it goes?
I think that's what I'm open to trying and see how it goes. Hopefully Henry, and when those things happen, Henry will email and try.
Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
We just need a motion for chair first, and then we need to vote, and then a separate one for vice chair.
Same motion for chair, vote. Can I say that?
And
I would-
who is the person you're motioning
Oh,
for?
Jamie, Jamie Cortez.
I'll second that.
Well, Jamie has to actually call for the second. Sorry, Jamie.
Oh, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? That's what you would ask.
I'm looking at my script here. It doesn't say that. Okay, so any other questions or comments on that? So Jinder calls roll.
Yes. Trustee Duke Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Hahn,
Aye.
Trustee Lentini,
Aye.
Trustee Ross,
Aye.
Acting Chair Cortez.
Did I vote for myself? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Jinder. And so now we are looking at, is there a motion for vice chair?
So I'll move to select Rob as the vice chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Adriana, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, Jinder, can you call roll, please?
Yes, Trustee Duke Hughes,
Aye.
Trustee Hahn,
Aye.
Trustee Lentini,
Aye.
Trustee Ross,
Aye.
Acting Chair Cortez.
Aye. Great.
Motion
Did
passes.
we need to touch on any of the committee assignments, Susan, or no?
The question I would have for you, Jamie, is you are now going to be the chair, and you are also on the working group. As long as you feel that you can fulfill both roles, then we're good. If you felt that you couldn't do both, then we would just need to have a nomination for somebody who could backfill your, basically your appointment to the working group.
Well, if I can read 18 proposals in like 6 days, then I think I can do it.
We're good as gold. We don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, that was the hard
Okay.
part.
Yeah. Okay, now we are at number 5, review of Board of Trustees meeting schedule of 2021. Henry?
Thank you, Chair Cortez now. Yes, I wrote the staff report that lists the dates for next year. I'm going to share my screen so we can all look at those. And then we're going to ask if anyone has any concerns or observations, or I tried to look for all major holidays for all of the major religions. I probably missed some, but if there's some conflict that I'm unaware of, or that you become aware of when we look at this, then that's what we're looking for. So sharing screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so the Library Board of Trustees meets the second Tuesday of each month. And I think we know from experience, depending on whether the first of the month is before Tuesday or after Tuesday, it kind of falls differently. And then we had some conflicts with, I think, Yom Kippur in the past and other things. And I kind of looked at all the major ones to see where they fell in the year, and I didn't see anything. So here is the proposed schedule of meetings. Some boards and commissions traditionally take certain months off, sometimes around the holidays, quote unquote, and or in the summer, though this particular board hasn't made that a tradition. So why don't we just look at these, and I guess maybe members had had a time to review this before the meeting. So basically showing you this list of dates concludes my presentation.
Well, can I ask about that? It does, in your experience, Henry and Jamie too, is it important to meet every single month, or do you think there's benefit of, from the agenda items, consolidating certain things into certain months and stuff like that? I'm just curious because
yes, very good question. In the past, I think farther in the past, we met every month, rain nor shine, agenda item or no. And I think the recent experience has been we meet when we have agenda items, and if we don't have them, we may suggest canceling the meetings. As a separate item at another meeting, we'll bring forward probably in the new year a work plan which will show agenda items like we did last year that we plan to bring forward for the year, so that we can have some collaboration about that and sense of what may be happening when. I don't think there's been a more uncertain time in recent memory than now, but on the same on alternately, this meeting virtually and having it recorded is an exercise in the most transparent government we've had to date, I think, and it allows us to really kind of organize in a different way. So yeah, we don't need to meet every month, but if we plan ahead, we can kind of have a nice slate of ideas for what's happening when. But things like we wanted to bring forward this year, a master fee schedule update, and kind of COVID got in the way of that, and some other things that didn't happen.
Yeah, I would say that we usually keep, can you hear me? Yes, okay. That we usually keep it, and then if, Rob, as you know, if we need to cancel it, we do. But I think Henry's right, having that schedule ahead, but I think it's good to keep them just in case things come up. As we know, we're in a different time.
Yeah, no, I just brought the question just because.
Henry, do you mind to stop sharing your screen, please? Thank you. Any other questions or comments from trustees? Jinder, is there any, oh, are you speaking, Adriana? Did I miss?
No questions, no comments. Oh, it all looks good.
Jinder, are there any public?
No attendees, no.
Okay. Yes, Susan.
I think going forward, I know there are boards and commissions that usually take off August and or November or December, just depending. But I would agree with you by holding kind of tentatively keeping these all on the calendar. It allows us some flexibility that if we don't have quorum and we have to cancel a meeting because we don't have quorum, we can make it up the next month easily. The other thing is, if we don't have agenda items, we will always contact the chair and vice chair to let you know we don't have items, or the items that we were supposed to have are been delayed. And you're not supposed, no board or commission is supposed to meet just to meet. You have to meet based on agenda items, not just to talk. So as much as we love it. So I do agree in this case. We've had to be really flexible in moving things around. So if we had canceled a couple of months prematurely, it could have impacted some work going forward. So I think for right now, that's probably a good plan. Once we kind of get the regular pace going, it might be advantageous to this board to know that it's going dark twice a year, so it can have its vacations and not worry about, missing a meeting. So
We don't need to vote on this, correct?
actually you do. All you need to do is make a motion to adopt the schedule as presented with no changes.
Okay, sorry, I did not see that we to create a motion. So is there a motion to approve the Board of Trustees meeting schedule for 2021?
Yeah.
Motion to
Motion to adopt with no changes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gender, will you call roll, please?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay,
Cheryl.
thank you. Okay, trustee Duke Hughes,
I,
trustee Hahn,
Aye.
trustee Lentini,
Aye.
trustee Ross,
Aye.
acting chair Cortez. I'm
Aye.
sorry, Chair Cortez.
Oh, Gender, you know, you got to get it straight. Now, come on. Aye, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now to board reports and comments. Other brief reports on any meetings, conferences, or seminars attended by board members.
I have one.
Great, Cheryl.
I attended the Library Journal Conference a few weeks back. And I would highly recommend, and I can send the link on the instructions to Henry to distribute, but I'd recommend if you had the time to check out the plenary and the opening and closing plenary talks. I thought they were really, really good. The opening plenary, she talked about, just sort of COVID and where libraries might be headed and a lot of the things happening with, in particular, sort of shared facilities around libraries. One of them she even presented was combined with a newspaper office and a library. So that was a really great talk. And then the closing plenary was all about funding and financing libraries. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to send the instructions and the links to check out the recordings from that conference to Henry to distribute if that sounds interesting to all of you.
it does. Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Sure
I'd be
thing.
definitely interested.
I would say the concurrent sessions, I mean, you might find some sound interesting, but I checked in on a few, but I really thought the plenaries were what was most interesting about the conference. It was just a one-day conference, so they're not long.
Great, thank you.
That was the Library Journal Design Institute. And some of the ones that submitted for our RFP were presented.
But yes, as a matter of fact, some of the architects that submitted RFQs or submitted their proposals were speakers or conference presenters. So
Interesting, great. Thank you, Cheryl. Any other Board of Trustees comments on any meetings, conferences, or seminars? No, okay, we'll close that item. We'll move to staff reports and comments, other brief program updates or reports on any meetings, conferences, or seminars attended by staff. Or Henry, if not, then if you want to move forward through.
Yes, thank you, Chair Cortez. Item 7. So I have a list of committees that I'm going to run through pretty quickly, and then I'll sort of go slower at the end. Measure D Parcel Tax Committee, the committee that oversees the library's funding. It's about a quarter of our budget, about $1 million that we get from a large number of parcels in the city of San Rafael. That committee had its last meeting on November 30th, where they approved their final report for the year, which will go before council on December 22nd, the last meeting in the calendar year. This report is on expenditures from the Measure D Parcel Tax Fund for the fiscal year, which ended. Susan has a question.
Sorry, it's the 21st, I believe.
Oh yeah, it's the 21st. Sorry, I had to write it on Tuesday. The 21st, Monday the 21st, sorry. but it's for the fiscal year 1920, which ended June 3rd, the last day of June in 2020. And the report can be seen when the council materials are released, but the COVID crisis had a great impact on the library spending for this year's truth. So that this, again, is kind of an anomalous year for the Partial Tax Committee. Friends of the Library are meeting tomorrow night. They're having a sort of quasi meeting, and their question is what's the future of the Friends store? The Library Foundation is meeting this coming Friday. They haven't met. I think we didn't meet last month, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Cheryl?
I think we skipped last month. We met the month before.
Yeah.
I think.
So I think they're very interested to know what's happening with the new library and regards to the RFQ for conceptual design for a library and community center in Albert Park. We'll come back to that. Marinette board is meeting next Thursday. At the last meeting, the big news was all of Marinette agreed to implement RFID using and starting with some funding that was available from the county to pay for the tags for all of the books in the system, which is between 1 and 200,000. So that gives everyone kind of a leg up. And RFID is a way of tagging the library books so that they can be read by an RFID reader. Multiple books can be checked out, and if we implement at a time, and if we implement automated materials handling, that allows us to process the library books through the system more efficiently. Not to go into it in too much detail. Many of the board have heard about this, some have not. We'll probably bring that back for an item when we have more, but it was very challenging to get everyone to agree because we have many different types of libraries, small, big, medium, and will this work for us? But it's pretty much an industry standard since the early 2000s. So we're happy that we're moving forward with RFID. There have been some privacy concerns around it, but the RFID tag has no personally identifying information, only the library book's barcode and maybe a couple of other items of metadata regarding that specific item and not who has it checked out. NorthNet board has not met in some time. It's the state library consortium we belong to. That's all libraries between Marinette. Marin is the most southern county in the consortium, and Siskiyou County, I think the most northern county, is those up against the Oregon border and over to the Sierras. It's kind of a big consortium, but we haven't met for some time. And the new library building update. Breaking news is that 18 proposals were submitted for our latest RFQ for conceptual design for a library and community center building in Albert Park. This was after the council received the study before that and gave us the go-ahead to proceed with the conceptual design. They were rated by the subcommittee working group that was referred to earlier, consisting of 2 members from the Friends, the Foundation, the Library Board of Trustees, and the Parks and Rec Commission initially. So not all of those 2 members rated everything. We came up with a short list of 5, and then we met with a debrief this afternoon to decide on, and there was a clear front runner that we're going to then try to negotiate a contract with. That specifically who it was is still confidential, and you can't talk about it or tell anyone if you know, until we actually have a contract with them. So I would ask you to not say anything. But we do feel excited that we have made so much progress in such a short period of time. Did I miss anything, Susan?
No, just a big thank you. First of all,
Yeah.
I want to thank Henry and Jinder because, and I think I've shared this with several of you, but I have never received 18 proposals for any bid process in 40 years. ever, not even for a t-shirt bid. I've never seen anything like this. And unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated than a t-shirt bid. Most of those packets look like theses, and everybody read every single one, screened and rated every single one. Then we got it down to 5. And then last week, every night, well, 3 out of the 5 nights last week, we interviewed each one of the groups with the panel. And the good news is we've received everybody's ratings from the working group that participated in the interviews. And it was clear that it was a clear front runner, as Henry indicated. So I want to thank the 2 members of this board, Cheryl and Jamie, for participating. It was no easy thing. It was definitely a heavy lift, heavier than what we all anticipated. But wow, we are so fortunate that of those 18 proposals, even when you get that many, usually there's about 5 or 6 that are just terrible proposals. And honestly, it was amazing. It was amazing. So I feel very fortunate to have been part of that process, and just want to thank everybody who has been involved. So thank you, Henry. And Ginger, thank you so much for masterfully scheduling and getting the copies out and everything. That was an amazing amount of work. So thank you. And Cheryl and Jamie, thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Can I ask a question? Given what's going on with COVID and city budgets and stuff like this, how should I think about actually getting funding to do any other than this? Like, how do I think about that as a trustee?
I can answer that. So we were surprised after COVID when we got the go ahead on this from the city manager, but because it's capital money and we have that money and because people donate to the library, and there's some surplus from the Measure D over the years, in terms of being able to afford the study, that's kind of not a problem. As far as the actual building, the significant investment by the community, and it's not really, it's sort of more of like an oil tanker where COVID is like a million mosquitoes flying around, and that's going to be a huge lift whenever it happens. So the stock market is not the economy, but the market forces, the politics around funding something like this, and I assume that's what you're referring to, besides the funding for the study, which is somewhat minimal.
No, I meant the actual building.
Yeah, the actual building, that's kind of a problem that's the same, I think, in COVID and non-COVID. But obviously it would be hard to kind of go out for a building in the middle of a budget crisis, but we're not really going out for a building right now. So,
but I will give you hope. I will share something with you. A couple of things. Number one, this is also this information, and I apologize if I'm being redundant, but we do have some board members that are new. I just want to make sure, as people are asking you, when you hear about this library and community center conceptual design for Albert Park, it's not a done deal. The city council a year ago felt that they had a lot of information on the Carnegie and how to improve it to be still the main library. But they liked the idea of a joint facility at Albert Park as well, and directed staff to kind of flush out that idea a little bit more and to bring it back so they could compare apples to apples or apples to oranges, whatever analogy you want to use here. But they really wanted to flush out both ideas to make a good decision and direct staff to go either left or right. So the good news is this is the perfect time for us to do a study, because the anticipation of building something right now is not really there. But here's where the good news comes from. I was working for an agency that was going through a lot of financial difficulties before the Great Recession hit. They were already having some issues. The year that I left that agency to go to another one, they passed 2 $30 million bonds in 2009. One for the school district and one for a brand new library. And that city is extremely diverse, and it is a lower economic kind of threshold than most agencies around here. And they passed both successfully. So, and the agency I went to was extremely well funded, and they didn't pass either. So you never know. You never know, but they passed them both during a recession. So I'm hopeful that when things come around, honestly, I think two things have happened with COVID. I think the value of the library and its impact on a community could not be higher than it is now. And honestly, open space and parks are pretty valuable right now too. So I think this is the time to strike. I think in people's minds right now, they understand how essential the library really is. So
Great.
that's my
Thank you.
optimism.
Thank you, Henry.
Good answer.
Henry, the only thing really quick is maybe to inform the board what the timeline is.
Yeah, let me just grab that real quick here.
Well, I'll help out with a little bit while he's looking at that. So what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks is Henry and I are going to reach out to the firm that was identified for us to start negotiating terms, which includes how much, and really to solidify the scope of work. If we arrive at an agreement and the terms of a city contract in legal terms to them and their contract to us is all agreeable, then most likely we would bring it to the city council in January. The only reason that might get prolonged is if we had some disagreement about terms and couldn't resolve it, then either it takes a little bit longer or we go to the second firm. But I have a very strong feeling that it is going to go very well. And so we're hoping at least that probably the second meeting in January, that would probably be the earliest, we would go to the city council for them to award the contract. Once that happens, the signatures happen the next day and we're going. So the meetings start happening with the working group. And I think the timeline, Henry can give you the specifics, but we were aiming to try to be completed by the end of June.
June 30th, we wanted to be completed by. I think we built in a lot of wiggle room, like we wanted the contract awarded by February. So if we get it to city council in January, we'll be ahead of the game. We would, and he had initially hoped to select by December 14th, I believe, was on the RFP. So consultant selected December 14th. So I feel like we're sticking to the timeline. We're moving at lightning speed. And then the projected landscape of events once the consultant is selected is that there'll be 4 meetings with the wheat working group between February and June, and a staff workshop and multiple phases of iteration. And then at the end of it, the finale, the crescendo, the city council presentation. And then yeah, so that's the kind of what the landscape, what it looks like over the next 6 months ish.
Thank you, Henry. Any other questions or comments? And then Henry can go into his librarian update.
Just a quick question. It sounds like the top of the 18 was there was a consensus on it. Are you able to share anything in terms of what made them stand out compared to others?
Kind
of. The top 5 people, any of them could do an awesome job. It was just sort of a matter of what everyone kind of their top couple favorites were and why, but we can't really get into specifics because we'll give it away. What do you think, Susan?
I think there's probably one element that we could share with you because they all have it kind of in common to some degree. So one of the reasons why those 5 really rose to the top was their prior experience a lot of them, all of them, had experience designing libraries. The 5 firms that were recommended for the interview process had joint facility experience of some nature. So they had either done libraries in combination with community centers, rec centers, learning centers, civic centers, something to that effect. So they have done something a little different, which is exactly what we're looking for here. And then obviously the firms that could articulate that and really give us some great examples did even better.
I would-
really good to hear. Thank you.
And I hope I'm not speaking out of term. Susan, you can mute me if I am, or Henry, but you know, from the 18 proposals down to the 5 and to our conversation that we had today, I mean, it was a pretty clear delineation at the top.
No muting necessary. And that's actually, that's exactly when staff is coordinating a process like this, there is nothing that we fear more that we have, in this case, a 5-way tie. What we are hoping is that everyone saw the same thing and is to some extent, and it just comes shining through. And that's exactly what happened. So it makes our life really good. So and it's great when a group like that comes together and, you know, it has the kind of net results that we saw today. So we're really very pleased, and we are hoping that we will be.
Sounds like it was a lot of work, but great work, and probably fascinating reading all those proposals. So thank you for all that time that you spent on behalf of the board, Cheryl and Jamie.
It was actually fascinating. Okay, so Henry, do you have a librarian update?
I don't really have a formal one, but a couple things. The library will be, and community services, library and recreation will be closed starting on the 21st of December through January 4th for our winter furlough. The library will be closed during that period. The book drops will be closed. We'll be extending due dates and kind of talking up our electronic resources. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that this year, because of furloughs and the holidays, we're taking all that as a chunk, and the whole department is doing that, which kind of works out well for both the current sort of shelter in place order and ongoing, because everyone's going to be home for 2 weeks. Starting, our last day of service would be the 19th of December, the Saturday, and then all of our staff will be not working until January 4th. So that's coming up. We're messaging it widely. Question, Adriana.
That was going to be my question, the messaging widely. And we missed the pre-Thanksgiving break, and you know, we didn't plan accordingly. We're hoping to better for the longer break, because especially during the school break, it's so important for the children and for all of us to have great books to read. So yeah, hopefully the public will be well aware of that break and, you know, plan ahead and return and pick up before the long break.
Yeah, we're digitally, social media. We're also created a bookmark that is attached to every bag that we give out at curbside. We're trying to personally contact everyone that picks up a curbside pickup to make sure they're aware. And I've been sort of making sure staff is doing that. So we're going to try to do better this time, and it's twice as long. So we also anticipate a huge backup of materials coming in like the day we come back, which we prepared for. We purchased additional barrels for quarantine. I also wanted to let you know we're part of the California Center for the Books Book to Action program this year, and we got a grant for a little over $1,000 to underwrite purchase of books. The book this year is called Vanishing Half, and by Britt Bennett. Jill Harris is running this for us, and Bonnie Groshung. And it's a program that's been going on for a few years, but we haven't been part of it. And it's grant funded by the state library, so we're excited about that. We recently got a repurposed paper cutter from Parking Services. The city used to run its own print shop, and we have like an industrial paper cutter that can cut like a ream of paper at once. And we're really excited to be able to make our own bookmarks in-house with the industrial paper cutter. Shout out to DPW. They delivered it Monday at 7 in the morning. I think last week at Friday. And it weighs probably like more than 1,000 pounds. So it was a feat of engineering to get it into the building. We're hoping to kind of make use of that while we're not open to the public. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions from any other trustees? Okay, we have our next meeting, January 12th, 2020, with future agenda topics, RFID project update. Anything else before we adjourn?
We will probably have the master fee schedule presented to the library board in January as well. It was supposed to be ready for December. That didn't happen. So we are hoping that the staff that is responsible for that project will be bringing it to you in January, February at the latest, because the goal is to get it done by the fiscal year.
Great. Okay, so we are adjourning at 7:39 p.m. Gender. Thanks, Eric, and welcome to your first meeting. And happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy
Yeah,
holidays.
happy holidays, everyone.
Sharon,
Susan.
Happy holidays.
Susan, do you have a minute? I just have a random question for you.
bye.
Bye, everyone.
We're being recorded, just FYI.
Oh. It's a random personal question about Arcadia.
Oh, okay.
Are we still being recorded? Yes.
Yeah, we can't turn it off, actually.